page Rish Sadi. Upper right hand corner on the page number Rish Sadi. Page Tetes, one more back, and there we go. Yeah. You happy with the show?
I gotta learn how to have it. Reish Sadi.
That's the page number. So that's the
Upper top right?
Upper top right, yeah. Stream up with 2 letters there, Reish Sadi.
And Sadi comes after Vav. Got it.
After pay and before kuf.
Okay.
Got it? See, it says at the beginning, it says the 12th Perek Shnaim Osa. Let's see. Yeah, that's Reish, that's Reish Vav. Reish, yeah.
Oh, Sadi. I don't even know the letters. That's ridiculous.
Okay, Halacha Gimel. Yeah.
בימי מלך המשיח, כשתתיישב מלכותו וייכנסו אליו כל ישראל, יתייחסו כולם על פיו ברוח הקודש. ותנוח עליו שנאמר וישב מצורף ומתאר.
So Rambam saying as follows: after in the times of Melech and Mashiach, and when his kingdom will be solidified and established, we cap to I love Kol Yisrael, and all the Jews are going to be coming to him. Jews from far and wide will be coming to Melech and Mashiach here in Yerushalayim, I imagine, and they're going to want to know who and what they are. Is he a Kohen? Is he a Levi? Right? They're going to know who am I? What am I? From what? Because all the as far as I understand, the Nachlot, the land state inheritance of the 12 tribes will return. Yehuda is going to have his land, and Issachar is going to have his land, and Dan is going to have his land. So you have to know, hey, I'm from Dan, I'm from Yehuda. Who am I? Where do I set up my homestead? You have to know these things. So with Ruach HaKodesh, Melech HaMashiach is going to be able to tell everybody who and what they are. And based on a pasuk, and it says Ubenei Levi. Go ahead.
בני לוי, מתאר תחילה ואומר זה מיוחס כהן וזה מיוחס לוי ודוחה את שאינו מיוחסים לישראל.
So you can, the first ones he's going to have to clarify who the Levites are, right? And then he's going to say who is a Kohen, right? And then he's going to say, well, there are some of you that are coming here, I have to tell you, you're not really Jews. Not really Jews. If you thought you were Jews, they're not really Jews. Okay.
התרשת להם ואחרי תמוד כהן ואורים ותומים. הנה אמרת שברוח הקודש מתייחסים המוחזקים ומודיעים במיוחד.
So there'll be the Urim B'Tumim. Again, the Urim B'Tumim is the part of the ephod, the breastplate that the Kohen Gadol would wear in his part of his service in the Beis Hamikdash. And there are ways to use the Urim B'Tumim to tell various different things. It can ask you various different questions, and it can give you various different answers. And that will be one of the devices used to determine who and what is who and what. So what does this mean? It says going to be as follows. So there's going to be, people are going to be assigned, Medui Shazam, meaning according to apparently the Oregon Kum, they're going to know this is going to be from Sheva Dan, there's going to be from the tribe of Yehuda, there's going to be from the tribe of Levi. They'll all find out who their tribe is going to be, right? But they're not going to, it's not going to speak about someone who's not kosher, to say that this one's a mamzer, or this is an evan, or this is because if it's already been that the family has been concealed, so he's going to leave it as being concealed. He's not going to reveal these things, these blemishes of the families. Right?
There's no need.
They've already been accepted, so he's going to leave it as status quo. Right? However, those that think they're Jews and not Jews, he's going to have to tell them they're not Jews. That's something else. That's something else. Finish the last two halachas now. The Rambam is summing up from Hakmana, from it's buried. This is meaning it's been concealed. Right? Meaning the fact that this person happens to be, or his family happens to be, maybe he himself. Well, that's the point. Somewhere back in the lineage, one of the parents was a mamzer, right? So that will make him a mamzer, or she a mamzer, right? So, but if it's been hidden up until now, so Urim B'Tumim apparently is not going to be used by Melech Mashiach to reveal these types of blemishes.
So they can get married?
Apparently, if they've already been accepted into Klal Yisrael, so they're not going to investigate the full absolute purity of the family. Right? If they've been accepted into Klal Yisrael and it hasn't been known up until that time, it's going to remain hidden. Right? Usually, Hazal, the Gemara explains that usually Kadosh Baruch Hu has a way of weeding out these types within a short time, so because doesn't this type of blemish in genealogy is not supposed to continue. So if it's been hidden up until now, it can remain hidden. Okay, halakha dalet.
לא נתאבן ואם החכמים ימות המשיח, לא כדאי שישתו כל העולם, לא כדאי שירדו בגויים, ולא כדאי יסעו אותם העמים, לא כדאי לאכול ולשתות ולשמוח, אלא כדאי שיהיו גדויים בתורה וחוכמתה, ולא יהיה להם נוקש ומוותר כדי שיזכה בחיי העולם הבא.
Kamoshi Varana Behilchus Tshuva. This last point is why we started doing these last two frucking, because this is what the Rambam had already explained in detail in Hilchus Tshuva. So again, the Rambam says here in Halakha Dal, no nisavu levim v'chachamim yimosa Mashiach. There was the prophets and the chachamim, the sages, did not desire Yimosa Mashiach, not that they should be ruling over the world, nor that they should have control over the goyim, nor that they should have a hate for them, the rest of the world. No, not neither that they should eat and drink and to rejoice. That's not the point of Melech Mashiach and Yimosa Mashiach. Rather, what's the reason why we want to have the time of Mashiach and all the things that consequently come from that? Elakadei Penuyim, the Torah, the Chokhmah, they should be free for Torah and for the wisdom of the Torah. They shouldn't have any difficulties nor anything which is going to take them away, mavatol them from being able to keep the Torah and to learn the Torah's wisdom. All in order that they should be zoicher l'chai olam haba, that they should be able to have life in the next world to come, that they should be able to prepare themselves properly, right, in order to get into the next world, which is the goal of this world. This world is, as Rambam spent a lot of time speaking about that in order to be properly received into the world to come, we have to make certain preparations in this world, basically through fulfilling the mitzvahs, learning the Torah, and doing acts of kindness, and all the other aspects of Jewish life that the Kadosh Baruch Hu desires from us. And if we do that in the proper way, so that gives us our Chai Olam Haba, that gives us our life in the next world. So if we have, in our time, when we're in Gullus, in exile, we don't have all the possibilities to fulfill these things in the proper way, because we've got to worry about dozens of different things which take us away in our minds and attention away from our real goal in life, to learn Torah and to do mitzvahs. So we're lacking in Chai Olam Haba. So the whole desire that the prophets had, the whole desire that the sages had for Yemos Mashiach, was that they should be able to be free from all those things, distractions, interferences with Torah and mitzvahs. Get those out of the way, let us just do what we have to do without interference, and then we'll be able to go into the next world. We'll be able to, go from here to there. It's like a guy's got a plane. 12 o'clock he's got to be on a plane, right? So he gets up early, Daven V'Siki nice and early, so now it's 7 o'clock. Okay, 7 o'clock, so he's got to pack, he's got to get on the cab from Yerushalayim to the airport. It's at 8 o'clock at night. So he's got himself there 13 hours, right? He's got himself 13 hours to prepare, right? So first thing is, he gets home, the phone's ringing. Someone needs him to take care of something in Furst. Okay. On the phone for an hour, trying to work it out. Okay, so now we lost 1 hour. So then, okay, he wants to eat, he wants to do something, so he tries to take care, he's got to pack his bags, he's doing this and this. Middle of packing his bags, someone comes over, he says, oh, I'm going out here, you're going away, maybe you can help me out, you can do something. He spends a couple hours doing this guy and everything like this. And also now that all of a sudden the roof starts leaking. He can't leave his apartment now with the roof leaking, he's got to call a repairman. Right? In the middle of the repairman, all of a sudden he's doing a wash, wants to go overseas with nice clothes. All of a sudden the washing machine pops out. He's got his laundry there all stuffed up with water and detergent, and it's not working. Not working. He's got to call the washing machine repairman. Meanwhile, it's 2:30 in the afternoon, the repairman hasn't even come, the laundry's still there. What's going on? He wants to get to that plane. But he's got all these different things constantly happening to him. He can't get onto that plane to where he wants to really go. That's like we're in Golis. We've got all these things we don't, and we think this is just normal life, the way we're living. You have to have a job, you got to go to college, you have to do this. But no, it's all these things that are just taking our minds and our energies off from what we really should be doing in life, which is really just trying to prepare ourselves to move on. Right? Guy has a trip to a plane to meet and a trip to take. He's not interested in sticking around taking all these mundane domestical things. Right? So likewise us, we really don't want to take care of all these domestical things, but if you have to do it, you have to do it. But we don't even have a conception of how much we have to do, is simply because we're in the situation of Gullus that we're in. If we were free from Gullus and free from all the distractions, interference of Gullus, we wouldn't believe the change. And we're not talking Rambam in his Shita. We're not interested in miraculous changes. We're just interested in a change that we'll be able to sit and learn Torah without any interference, without any mental interference and siphoning off our energies towards other things which are more domestic, mundane, and actually just sitting and learning the Torah and fulfilling the mitzvahs we're supposed to do. That's what we want Mashiach for. Not interested in control, not interested in miracles. We're interested in just letting everybody be able to sit and learn and do mitzvahs. That's what we're interested in. And that's, because we know that's the way we can get to the real goal, which is the next step in our existence in the Chai Olam Haba. Okay, let's continue on. The last halacha hey. So at that time, meaning the time of Mashiach, there's not going to be famine, there's not going to be any lack of food. There won't be war. There's not going to be any conflicts. There won't be any jealousy. There won't be any tacharut, any competition. Why? The reason is simply that there'll be an influx of goodness into the world. The kol ma'adani mitzvim kafar, and all the delicacies, any kind of delicacies you could imagine, they'll be like afar. They'll be like the dirt of the earth. They'll be like at your feet. And any kind of delicacies you want, and Baruch Hashem, you don't have to go too far. You can go to any go into a candy store, a supermarket, Who would imagine, I can guarantee you the Chafetz Chaim never saw a candy store in his life that we've got, right? The Rambam never saw a candy store, a supermarket like we've got, If they were transported to our supermarkets and candy stores, they say, wow, this is actually almost exactly what we're talking about over here. It's like at your feet. You got so much stuff. Okay, you got to pay for it. Fine. It's another story. But it's all there. It's all there. So the Rambam just saying there's going to be no wars. There'll be no jealousy. There'll be no competition because there'll be such an influx of good. Such an influx of blessing to this world that there will be so much available, so much goodness available, so many products and commodities available for you to choose and pick at such a very low, almost non-existent price. You have everything at your feet, and you'll be able to. You don't have to be jealous of anybody because you've got more than you could ever possibly want yourself. And all these things are given to us simply so we can be able to sit and learn and do mitzvahs. That's the whole purpose. And all in a non-miraculous way. It doesn't have to come miraculously. That's part of what we lost when we lost the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara says explicitly, the Mishna and the Gemara and then the Sota says that when we lost the Beis Hamikdash, this is primarily bias Rishon, the first Beis Hamikdash. The second Beis Hamikdash brought it back a little bit, but most of what we lost was probably lost at the time of the first Beis Hamikdash. That's when basically prophecy came to almost an end, except for another 70 or so more years. And then not only that, but all our Gashmi suffered, right? The Gemara says, I mentioned to you before, that the time of Paris, the taste of fruits, was lost when we lost the Beis Hamikdash. What our fruits taste like is nothing near what they really should be tasting like, right? The time of basar, right? The taste of meat is nothing really what it should taste like. If I'm not mistaken, I think Chazal say that bone marrow is a little bit about like what real meat is supposed to taste like. It's supposed to, if you've ever had bone marrow, but when I still a bacher, I was working at a few universities, so on Shabbos I was single at the time, so there would be an older couple called Shlomo, I'm sure you're all in the Emes now. But on Shabbos, what did they have for Shabbos morning? They didn't invite me for Shabbos meals many times. They'd have a bone marrow broth soup. That was their. It wasn't a cholent like we have here in Eretz Yisrael. Different people in different places of the world have different cholents. Cholents basically, you're supposed to have chamim on Shabbos. You're supposed to have hot meal on Shabbos, particularly during the day meal, because during the night meal it's not so hard to have a hot meal. You can have it already left over from Erev Shabbos, but then, especially on the Shabbos, have a hot meal and then in the morning meal, in the day meal. So the Sephardim have their kind of children, the Ashkenazis have their kind of children. Different people in different parts of the world develop different children. So this couple, they happen to be from Germany, and so their hamim, their morning was a bone.
Soup.
Yeah, what?
Boiler soup.
Boiler soup. Okay, there you go. How do you know? It's from that group. You come from Germany, yeah?
Washington Heights.
Oh, you're from Washington Heights? That's where I was. I was working while you were there.
I know you.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, that's the morning suit. That's what that, and it was the most delicious thing you could ever imagine. It was you know. So
What was in it? What was in it besides the bone marrow? Was there onion or potato or things in it, or just the liquid in the bones?
It was potatoes.
So it had stuff in it, beans or whatever.
Not
Okay.
so much beans, but then it was basically more like it was more on the broth side of things rather than thick. But there was potatoes and onions and other things like that.
Okay.
But it's great, get these soup marrow bones and these, that's what Chazal say is a little bit what the meat used to taste like at the time of the Beis Hamikdash. So we lost all that because the Beis Hamikdash was a direct connection towards having all the influx of the spiritual worlds come into this physical world. And once we lost that connection, everything became diffused. Right? It was like a faucet, and it was therefore the influx of bracha of Gashmis into this world was very concentrated and specific. Now, afterward, there's no basic meaning, so it was very diffused. Very diffused. We lost a lot of the
So taste was taken away?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the more in South, if I'm not mistaken. It says we lost the Tam Paris, Tam Basar, lost a few other things too. It says very clearly what we lost with the loss of the Beis Hamikdash. We lost quite a lot, not just in Ruchnis. The whole world lost a lot of the Kashmis as well. The Gemara describes how in the base of this is the Bayis Rishon, which was completely different than the Bayis Sheni, but the Kohanim needed the perfect example. The Kohanim needed Parnasa. They needed to have money to live on. So Shlomo Melech had developed certain vines that were made of gold, and they grew gold pavers, gold fruits, and they would take the gold fruits and then take them and whatever, sell them for gold, and they would have money to spend, have the spending money. Yeah. So that's going to be somewhat reclaimed in the time of Mashiach, that we'll have such an influx of spiritual blessing into this world. So the Gashmis will be elevated and elevated. Let's see the last ones. If yeah, right. We're 3 lines up from the bottom, and the last halacha. V'lo yeh oisek ha'olam. Right. The only activity the whole world's going to have one activity, the das es Hashem, Bilvad. All to understand and to know Hashem. The
It's
whole.
done in Torah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's how you know Hashem. There's no other way to know Hashem.
Excuse me.
There's no other way to know Hashem.
That's right. Right, so even the Goyim, they'll be Oisek in their mitzvahs, Shuvas B'nai mitzvahs, and they'll be able to come to an understanding of Hashem through their mitzvahs. Yeah, sure.
In this world, the only way to understand Hashem is through Torah. Is that going to be different in the next world?
Well, so in the next
We're
world,
going to know Him in other ways too, no?
Right, there's going to be, because the next world, when all the physical barriers between us and the Kadosh Baruch Hu are eliminated, that's the basic difference between this world and the next world. So there's going to be a more of a direct experience, as directly as anything, even a spiritual thing, can have with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. There'll be a direct experience, which is going to, as the Rambam explained to us in Hilchos Shuvah, it's completely beyond, we can't conceive. Because the only conceptions we have are with sensory understandings of things. So we have no way of even people when they dream in physical images. Yeah. So it's going to be one and only one activity in the time of Mashiach. That's the whole world will be involved in knowing Hashem, understanding Hashem, which is as the Rambam explains and others explain, the way to really understand is to understand His Ratzon, understand the Torah, His commandments. You understand His commandments, and you understand your Master through the thing He commands you to do. Right? Obviously, because if the Master is commanding you to do something, that's obviously important to the Master. It's something which is a elevation of what the Master's interests are, what His essence is. Right? So just like Kadosh Baruch Hu, is interested in chesed, so you understand, kiviyachol, right, that Hashem is something to do with chesed. That's a tremendous midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We're going to have free will choice.
Oh, so it's going to be limited, because why? Because it's going to be so clear. It's like that's a big question, and I'm going to give a small answer. Okay, it's like this: free will in general. The best way to understand what free will is all about is to understand that free will is primarily given to us in terms of our choosing to do mitzvahs or not to do mitzvahs. Okay? Should we do a mitzvah? Should we not do a mitzvah? Right? And the more you know about everything in life, the more you realize that everything in life is really, in one way or not, a mitzvah or not. And even the gray areas can be brought into the understanding of whether it's the Ratzon Hashem or it's not the Ratzon Hashem. So that's what free will is all about. So at a time when it's going to be so clear, right, what Hashem wants, right? So as some explained, the Shach Zitzal explained, according to the Brisker Rav, the Akedis Yitzchak, Avram Avinu. When the Kadosh Baruch Hu spoke to Avram Avinu and said, "I'll ask Bincha, you should bring up your son," right? It wasn't a choice. It wasn't a choice. Avram Avinu understood the Kadosh Baruch Hu so clearly that he understood that Hashem has control over his life and his death, and you simply cannot do what someone who's so powerful. And for example, a guy is holding a gun to somebody's head, right? So he says, "Cook me a steak." Right? So is there free will involved whether you cook a steak or not?
I mean, theoretically.
Okay, theoretically, yeah.
You can either choose to let him do what he's going to do, or you can choose to cook the steak.
Right. So if it's on a weekday, right? Right? And it's not a time when they do what we call Gezer Shema, a time of persecutions. So you cook the steak, right? Because really you don't have any. You're supposed to live. You want to live. So it's not. It's a no-brainer, as they say, right? You want to live. It happens to be Shabbos. Shabbos is a little more complicated. You Mechal Shabbos because this fellow wants you to Mechal Shabbos, and if it's a time of persecution, right, person may have to even give us his life. So then, all of a sudden, free will becomes available again, right? So if it's a no-brainer, it's a no-brainer. But sometimes the same situation, with different conditions, will become a very big factor of free will. So simply on you have a candle burning on the table. To put your finger in the candle, right? Is free will about that? But you realize there's consequences. So you realize the consequences. So your free will is suspended. It's it's a no-brainer. There's no free will here. You're not going to do it, right?
But you can do it.
You can do it. So the fact that you can do something doesn't necessarily change the fact free will is not dependent on whether you can or not do it. Sometimes it will, right? Sometimes free will, the ability to do something and your free will sometimes interface, right? But sometimes not, right?
Yeah, I can put a finger in.
You can. If you're willing to suffer the consequences, you certainly can. You certainly can. Right?
If you do it, it'll give you $1 million. Would you do it?
Oh, so then all of a sudden there's more free will. Well, now free will becomes, you can exercise your free will, right? Because why? Because for $1 million, you're willing the person might be willing to burn his finger off.
Now I have three choices. I can not do it, I can burn myself, or I can get the $1 million.
Yeah, right. So now all of a sudden free will. So we say in Yomos Mashiach, is there going to be free will? So now, doing the will of Hashem, you don't see the $1 million for doing the free will of Hashem. And in Yomos Mashiach, you're going to see the $1 million in front of you, more or less. In another, just metaphorically speaking, you're going to see the $1 million in front of you. So who's not going to want to put on tefillin? You know, if every guy who came upstairs today got himself $1 million in cash in his pocket, right? Would anyone out there on the street not come to daven?
I might even make it then.
But Olam Haba, Chai Olam Haba is worth much more than $1 million. How much can you do with $1 million? If you're going to get, let's say you're going to get $1 million every day to put on tefillin. So during the course of a year, you put on tefillin, let's say 250 times, maybe 250 times. So you get yourself at the end of a year $250 million. And you get $1 million every day, not at the end of the year. You get 200. So you got yourself after the first year $250 million, right? Not a bad income. Okay, the IRS is going to take after that, whatever they're going to take. Okay, but you have some spending money, right? So, great. So maybe your life will change after the first few months, but once you leave, you're going to plateau, right? You know that money is going to mean relatively less and less to you unless you think of creative solutions with what to do with that money, right? So the rewards we're going to get in the next world, they're infinite. They're never going to plateau. Right? So Hashem gives us free will. He doesn't give us the $1 million in our pockets for putting on tefillin every morning, right? So because He wants us to have free will, right? But in Yemos HaMashiach, it's going to be so clear that the $1 million is coming to us in ways we can't really. No, we're not there. We don't have we never were given the information to really know clearly what it's all about. But it's going to be so clear. So, is it going to be free will? It's going to be like if I was giving out $1 million to put on talis and tefillin this morning. Would there be free will? I could say no. I don't want the $1 million. Doesn't mean much to me. Might find a few people in the world like that. Not too many. So free will is a relative term. It's not an absolute term. It's a relative term. Depends on circumstances and where it interfaces with the choices available.
What about like using the bathroom, eating food,
Right.
putting on talis and tefillin? We're actually going to do those things?
Apparently, according to the Rambam's opinion, yeah. According to there may be other opinions, right? Maybe other opinions, but the Rambam learns that everything's going to be basically the same, right? And the main thing that's going to change is that we'll have time and freedom to learn and do mitzvahs as we're supposed to do.
Okay, and just one more time. The Rambam is telling us this based on his encyclopedia-like knowledge of everything.
Yeah, he's
He just like Rambam is a Rishon, okay, which means what? Okay, there was Moshe Rabbeinu, then there was Yeshua, right? Then there was the Zakanim, the elders in the time of the Midbar. Then there was the prophets, right? Then there was the Anshe Knesset Gedolim. Okay, from then on began the time of the Gemara, right? You had the Tanoim, the early Tanoim. Then in the later Tanoim, there were two stages in the Gemara, Tanoim and Amoraim. Okay, the Tanoim basically lived up until the time of the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash and a generation or two after that. We're familiar with Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Akiva. Then you have Amoraim. They came on after the Korban, after the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, and they were both located in Bavel and in Eretz Yisrael primarily, mostly in Bavel. That's the Talmud Bavli. That's where our Masorah is through the Talmud Bavli. The Talmud Shami is important, but it's secondary to the Talmud Bavli. Basically, your Amoraim were Yeshua ben Levi, was one of the first of the Amoraim. You have Rav and Shmuel. You have Abaye and Rava, Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan happens to be the one who collected and compended the Talmud Yerushalmi. Okay, Rav Ashi and Ravina compended the Talmud Bavli. Okay, then after the time of the Tanoim and Amoraim, you have the Geonim, right? Then some more periods, short periods in between that, and then there was another period of the Rishonim. Rishonim lived basically 1,000 years or so ago, right? Famous among the Rishonim is Rashi, okay, Rabbeinu Yonah, the Rashba, the Rashbam, the Ritva, the Meiri, the Rambam, the Rif, the Rosh.
Okay.
Okay.
All those names that I recall.
You probably hear them in
Yeah.
the Mishna Brewer. You'll see the mentioned very many times. So the Rishonim they all had tremendous, to be a Rishon that's known and loved and cherished and learned in these days. They had, you can't, no one could say one was bigger than the other. They were, it's like, you know, an ant like me can't discuss, you know, stars. Like, you know, that's they were Rishonim. They know they're Rishonim. So Rishonim, based on everything they understood from Chazal, right? And because when you're learning through sugiyas, that's the whole beauty of learning Gemara. You get to see that when you're dealing with problems that the Gemara raises, for example, one of the first sugiyas in Brachos, the beginning of Torah Shabbat Peh, is a question: do Mesim know anything about what goes on and occurs in Olam Hazeh?
Mesim or
In the-
angel,
Dead people.
the
dead people. Okay. Do they know what's going on in the world today?
Yeah, they know.
Okay.
Yeah, right. That's anything. Does Rashi know what's going on this
Are
absolute
they
moment?
watching? Do they see? Do they
Yeah,
know?
right. Do they
Okay.
know? Right. So the Gemara, for a specific reason, goes into that question, right? And you see that the Gemara brings different proofs and disproofs, right? And in the end, the question may be resolved, may not be resolved. Could be, they have many questions in the Gemara that are questions and they're not resolved. You have questions that are resolved. And sometimes you have machlokus in how it's resolved. If it's resolved, how was it resolved, right? You have Tosus also Rishonim. You have Rashi, and we lived in France, and most of the Bali Tosus were the grandsons of Rashi, right? In the Gemara, you have Rashi on the inside columns, and you have Tosus on the outside columns, right? So all this information, right, is available to us, right? And at the time of the Rishonim, they basically had the Gemara and Chazal, right? So they would learn the Gemaras, and they also many times came out with differing understandings of what the conclusions of the Gemara were. Okay, so therefore you have, for example, tefillin. You have a tefillin which we wear, the most standard tefillin that we wear, this is before Shulchan Aruch, is Rashi, tefillin of Rashi. Okay, basically there's a question, in the tefillin shel Rosh, right, you have four, what we call batim, four compartments. It's a question, what's the order of
Of
there are
what
four
goes
sep-
in them?
Right, there are four separate parshas. You open up, you take a look. There are books you can swine. You can see to show you actually what the parshas are. It said clearly what the Torah says clearly what the parshas are. Right, you know clearly what the parshas are. The order of what's supposed to be in, not clear. So Rashi has a certain understanding of what the conclusion of the Gemara, based on the Gemaras and everything else he knew, what the conclusion is. Rabbeinu Tam, one of his grandchildren, has a different conclusion as what the order should be.
Okay.
Okay? So you see, just one case in point how a minor but significant, there's nothing unsignificant. It makes something you mean minor, it seems what's the order? But if you, I'll just give you a muscle. What's the order where you put in the batteries? You put this way upside down, this way upside down, that way. It matters if it's going to work, right?
Okay.
So you can see, like, you know, in a physical, realistic sense, the way you do it is significant. Right? So that's so that because the Gemara didn't maybe discuss it, and if it was discussed, the conclusion wasn't. Sometimes the Gemara just raises the subject and doesn't answer it. So all the Rishonim had their way of going through Shas, right? And they had their Kabbalah from the Rebbeim that had Kabbalahs, meaning a Masorah from their Rebbeim. So you have different drachim, different ways and opinions in terms of how everything should be done in terms of halacha, certain hashkafas which should be held in terms of what's hashkafas. So that's Rishonim. After Rishonim, then you have Achronim, which is basically 500 years or so before our time, right? And that's basically where the Shulchan Aruch, the halacha of Shulchan Aruch as it is now, is crystallized, crystallized in the Shulchan Aruch. Previous to the Rishonim, there wasn't a Shulchan Aruch, right? The Rosh was toward the end of the Rishonim. His son was called the Tur, right? The Tur. The Rosh wrote on the Gemara. The Tur, his son, basically wrote a halakhic summary of laws, and that became the Torah. After the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, as we know it, was developed by Rabbi Yosef Cairo and the Rabbi Moshe Yisrael. And then that was 450 or so years ago, and then things have just been progressing and becoming more detailed and more clarified as up to our present day.
Thank you.
We have to know the process that we talked about yesterday, that the Rambam said. He's bringing all these things in that people talk about and wonder what's going to happen with the Mishna. But as he told us, we don't know. There's things we can't know. But I've got to reiterate it again. When we talk about I got up to now, we involved in it, 1,000%. The Amorim and they were very involved in I got up there. And it wasn't that just that you don't know halakha form. Of course you don't. But there's a message in it. What's the message? So all these things he's bringing out again after he's already told us. These are mashals. We can't know, but there's a message in it. How should we live our life, and what we can hope what will be in the Olam Haba. No one knows. Do we get a postcard? I ain't got a postcard.
Okay, Yasher Kolach.
Okay, we'll have to stop here. Okay, we'll continue. Good questions, Mrs. Young.
Thank you.
You don't,
I hope I don't waste everybody's
no,
time.
you don't
Everybody
waste
already
anybody's
knows
time.
this.
No.
Okay.
All questions are accepted and